Hello, today is May 26, 2021, and this is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock, and today I have a special mystery guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is until after the sponsor break and some news nuggets. But I will tell you that you know who the person is. You know who it is. And you'll get to learn more about this person. Is this person in the hemp space? Yes. Is this person a hemp farmer? No. Processor? No. An advocate? Yeah. A journalist? Yeah. A podcast host? You'll have to wait and see.
Hi folks, this is Ken Elliott with IND Hemp, and I wanted to thank Eric and the Lancaster Farming Podcast for their great support of the hemp industry. IND Hemp is doing some really amazing things in Montana, and we'd like to reach out to all of you out there who are doing similar things for hemp around the country. Today I'd like to give a shout out for Lancaster Farming Summer Roadshow across the United States as they advocate for hemp and let us know what's happening in hemp country. I'd like each of you to consider sponsoring Eric's trip and send some kind of financial support to put fuel in his van and to keep him fed as he advocates for us, all of us in the hemp industry. And let's let everyone know what the goodness of hemp looks like. Thanks again for all your great work, and I look forward to seeing all of you in Montana someday.
Just wanted to add one small thing to Ken's message that we have set up an Indiegogo crowdfunding page, and you can find that link at lancasterfarming.com on the show page for this episode. All right, let's get into some nuggets of hemp news. All right, here's a story from Hemp Industry Daily. The headline reads, New York State latest to ban Delta-8 THC and modifies ban on smokable hemp flower. The story says that New York State is the latest to expressly prohibit Delta-8 THC and other THC isomers derived from hemp. But the Empire State made small concessions to hemp producers this week in an updated batch of hemp regulations, including a modification to limits on smokable hemp and removing a requirement that all cannabinoids over 0.05% be listed on product labels. New York is going to keep its proposed ban on hemp pre-rolls, cigarettes, and any flower product labeled or advertised for the purpose of smoking, but the state health department says it will allow the sale of hemp flower so long as the flower is not branded as an item for smoking. All right, here's a story from hempgrower.com. The headline reads, Mississippi Hemp Association launches program to help farmers succeed. The story goes on to say that Mississippi lawmakers voted to legalize hemp in June 2020, which makes the crop relatively new to farmers in the state. However, the Mississippi Industrial Hemp Association wants to help those interested in growing. The MIHA is a nonprofit organization that provides resources, education, and practical expertise for hemp farmers. The association has launched a pilot program designed to aid farmers in growing hemp as a legal crop. Okay, so Mississippi, check them out. I'll put a link on the show page for the episode. All right, and finally, here's a story about some people we know, people who have been on the show before. This is a story on dwell.com, DWELL.com. It's a website about architecture and design. And look, here it is. Coexist Build launches DIY tiny home that's designed to be built in just a week. It's made from hemp blocks and starts at $27,000. So yeah, Drew and Anna were on our show a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago now. But here they are in Dwell magazine. So it's great to see their work getting some recognition. Check it out. There's great photos, and the story gets into, what they're all about. So check it out. I will put a link to this story and all the others on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com. All right, and now we get into our show today with our mystery guest. Here we go. Eric Herlock, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing today? Oh, well, I'm doing okay. I feel a little overwhelmed with sort of the work that's ahead of me and the work that's on my plate now. But generally feeling good. I am grateful for all of the opportunities that have been presented to me. I am grateful for the people that I have met through this work, and I am just grateful to be alive on God's green earth. Also very, very grateful for my family, my wife and my kids. And yeah, I just, I feel it. I feel just extremely grateful. Okay, well, thanks. That was kind of more than I was looking for. Well, so why don't you give us a little introduction? Where are you from? What's your deal? Okay, sure. So I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania. Back then it was rural. Now it's not as rural. I grew up across the field from a dairy farm. My best friend growing up, his grandfather was the dairy farmer. They had a herd of Holsteins, and I spent a lot of time over there. And this was the 80s, and I could ride my bike pretty much anywhere in the township. And there were so many dairy farms back then, and a lot of them had ice cream shops and milk stores. So it was pretty neat. But I've since seen that farm, the one across the field from me, get split up, and now it's, like 100 houses, particle board palaces. Okay, and I guess that's all people need to know about your early childhood, that you grew up next to a farm. How about education? What's your educational background? I went to college. It took me a really long time to get through college. I transferred, I dropped out, I traveled, I changed my major. But eventually I graduated from Kutztown University in 1997 with a degree in English and a minor in professional writing, which, that's, that and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee, that sort of thing. That's cool. I respect that. How about like career-wise? Do you have a career? Well, yeah, I guess I do now, but that wasn't always the case. I used to say that instead of a career, I just had a loosely related series of odd jobs. After college, I moved up to Boston, and I did all sorts of different things up there, from working in, it's like a bookshop, and then I was a software specialist at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and then I became an editorial assistant at a startup publishing company, and then I taught middle school computers for a few years in Medford, Massachusetts. Then we moved back home to Pennsylvania. I worked for a school district for a little while, and then I got back into publishing at a newspaper down towards Philadelphia. And then, of course, what did I do? I apprenticed as an electrician, and I worked in the trades for a while. I was a residential electrician working with my uncle in the family trade. My father, he was an electrician, and his uncles were electricians, and, my great-grandfather. So, it's in the blood. Eventually that led to doing solar installations. But then once my wife and I started having babies, I did not want to be up on a roof all the time. So I sought out some work closer to the ground, and eventually became the online editor at Organic Gardening Magazine, which is now closed. It was that historic publication started by J.I. Rodale back in like 1947. And it was great. I loved working there, and I really, I'm a gardener. I love my hands in the soil. I love plants. And that eventually led to me working at Lancaster Farming newspaper. And I've been there over 6 years now. Cool. Well, it seems like a really great place to work. And well, how did you get into the podcast? How did you start podcasting? Why did you start podcasting about industrial hemp? Yeah, you're right. It is a great place to work. The people I work with are phenomenal. I've never felt this supported in any job I've ever had anywhere. So yeah, shout out to you guys. As far as podcasting and industrial hemp, well, I've always been involved in recording music. I'm a musician on the side, and I've always had some level of home recording studio going on, whether it was a little Tascam 4-track tape player or something. But, maybe 10 years ago, I moved into like digital recording. And so it was sort of part of my skill set, but I never really considered being able to use it for my actual job. But then as far as hemp goes, I've always been cannabis friendly, right? And at one point in my, early 20s, I came across the Emperor Wears No Clothes book by Jack Herer. And, I was sort of tuned in to all of the wonderful uses that the hemp plant has to offer. So that was always sort of in the back of my mind. And then in 2017, in my capacity as a journalist with Lancaster Farming newspaper, I was covering a field day at the Rodale Institute in Berks County. And the Rodale Institute was one of the, the first permit holders under the research pilot program here in Pennsylvania. And they had 4 acres of hemp. They were doing weed suppression trials and variety trials. And I stood there next to these 4 acres of hemp, just like blown away, because like I had dreamed of it, but here it was in reality. And it was like, wow, this is happening. And then sometime in the months after that, there was discussion at work about maybe creating some kind of farmer radio, which we didn't really know what that meant, but I sort of raised my hand in the meeting. I'm like, how about we do a podcast? And everyone looked at me like, a what? But, I'd been listening to podcasts in my personal life for a long time at this point. I think some of the first podcasts I listened to were back in like 2009. So, it had been sort of also in my head that, on-demand audio is a thing that we can do. And they said, well, what would this podcast be about? And I said, well, it'd be about farming. And then it's funny, if you go back and listen to the intro episode for our podcast, I lay out this whole big plan about I'm going to talk about this and that and the other thing. But then once the podcast actually gets going, it's about hemp. And then after about like 7 episodes, I'm like, all right, well, I think we're going to, change the subject soon. But there was just so much to talk about with hemp, and so many fascinating people. And I'm just completely fascinated by how an industry develops, like from nothing, how this industry sort of gives birth to itself. And like, you never see that this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, as a journalist to tell a brand new story. And, so that's where the podcast came from. It was sort of like the perfect intersection of my skill set and my interest and what they needed for Lancaster Farming. And, I did it for a while as sort of like a side project. I would sort of hustle and get it done, but then also, keep the rest of my job going, which managing websites and doing, all kinds of stuff. But over these past few years, it's really sort of snowballed, I guess. And it's really changed my life in an amazing way. And I'm just absolutely grateful for the opportunity and for all the people I've met and just the work I get to do. Wow, that sounds really special when you put it that way. So you're going on a trip soon. What does this trip have to do with industrial hemp? Really, you're asking me that? You know the answer to that. But I will humor you and try to answer the question. So this trip is not just about industrial hemp. This is specifically about fiber and grain hemp. All right. Over these past few years of legal hemp, there's been so much discussion about CBD and the medicinal uses of the cannabis plant. And I think that's great. I'm not discounting any of that. I do think the CBD market is sort of dangerous for farmers to get into at this point. But I think the long-term promise of the plant lies in the fiber and the grain. Like I'm not saying anything new here, but I don't think enough people know about it. Or if they do, they just think, oh, well, that's just the hemp plant. That's just a bunch of pot smoking hippies, No, it's like hemp has bigger fish to fry than the CBD stuff and the THC stuff. Like, no, this is life-changing, world-changing, paradigm-shifting potential of this plant. Because let's face it, the world is just in need of some major help. Like we have to reconfigure how we're doing things. We need to redesign our systems. We need to get out of the oil industry and start using plant-based things as our raw materials, right? And we can do it. We know how to do it. Like here in the United States, we've got, the best technology and the best farmers and some of the best land in the world. We can do this, right? I don't doubt that at all. But it's frustrating because people don't know, or I don't know. Wait, hold on. Let's get back to the trip. Tie it back to the trip, Eric. Right, thanks. Yeah, so this trip is me driving around to various states where, the hemp industry is growing. There's textile stuff down in North Carolina, and there's all kinds of stuff in Kentucky and through the Midwest. And I want to go out and I want to meet the people that are doing this. Like I've talked to a lot of them on the phone, but I want to be there. I want to see the operations. I want to see the plants in the ground. I want to talk to the people and hear their stories and sort of, I want to see their vision of the future. I want to see it through their eyes, standing in their shoes. So I want to go out and meet people. This is like a classic American journalism quest, right? Like in the vein of Charles Kuralt, On the Road with Charles Kuralt, or even Hunter S. Thompson. Like this is kind of a gonzo journalism project. Or, right now I'm reading Travels with Charlie in Search of America, a book by John Steinbeck. Back in 1960, he drove around in an RV and talked to people. And that's what I want to do. And I am very lucky that I get to do this, right? Like this opportunity sort of came out of conversations with I&D Hemp. They are our sponsor for this year, and in discussions with Ken and Greg from I&D Hemp, they were like, we would really love for some of this sponsorship money to put Eric on the road, right, and go out and meet people. And so I kind of developed that idea a little bit and took it to my editor, and he was like, oh, that's a neat idea. I'm like, well, can we do it? He's like, you mean this year? Like, yeah, I mean, this year, let's strike while the iron is hot. We have momentum. There's something happening. And then especially after the year of COVID and being just shut down and not talking to anybody, this is just a dream come true. And yeah, it's very surreal. It's a surreal situation I find myself in. So what do you hope to get out of this? Like what is this trip going to do? Right. What I hope it does is shine a bigger and brighter light on the grain and fiber side of the industry, right? Because these industries have a lot of potential, but we need more people to understand, the goodness of hemp, to quote Ken Elliott. And so I think by going out on the road and talking to people and, writing stories for the newspaper and, sharing hemp people's stories with a larger audience in Lancaster Farming, I think that will just plant more seeds and people will realize, what the potential is here. I know there's still a lot of challenges, because it seems like a certain subset of the population seems very resistant to any kind of, environmental discussion or climate change discussion or, heaven forbid, a Green New Deal. But let's face it, we have these challenges that we need to imagine new possibilities, right? And the world's not going to change on its own. We have to imagine the world we want and then start working towards that. And I honestly believe that we need to move to plant-based manufacturing. Maybe that's not the right term, but the raw materials for the things we use in our everyday lives can all be made out of plants, right? Everything, almost everything. Yeah, sure, we're going to need metal and other things like that. But, we don't need to be reliant on oil, whether it's foreign or domestic. We don't need to be reliant on that for all of our plastics. We can make the same polymers out of other things. And, while we're sort of reinventing this new system, we can take care of other things, like all of the trash and the packaging. And we can design a new world, right? One that's based in agriculture. Like, I don't think hemp is the only thing that's going to work here. Like, the solution doesn't have to be hemp, but the solution has to be agriculture, right? It's like they're talking about, we want to develop this technology that sequesters carbon and pulls it out of the atmosphere and locks it up. Like, yeah, we have that already. It's called plants. And here's a plant, the cannabis plant that does all that and more. And so if we can reach a wider audience and if we can get other people involved, and like, I really think the answer here is that consumers need to demand a different way, right? Consumers need to demand that their products are made out of regenerative, sustainable materials. Right. And you think driving around the country in an RV for 6 weeks is going to do that? Man, what kind of question is that? Whose side are you on here? No, I don't think this 1 6-week trip is going to make the difference that changes everything. But we're part of the conversation, Like, I am not unique in this. Many other people have gone out and done hemp road trips. Other people have gone out and, done journalism from the road. But I think, I have a responsibility as a journalist, as someone who's interested in this, as just, the work I've already done and I've put into this, this is the next logical step, right? And if we can elevate the message that farmers can help change the world for the better, then let's get that message out there, right? Sure. All right, so let's talk about the trip. You're starting at the end of June? Yeah, that's right. June 28th is the beginning of the tour. We are going to have a send-off event at New Holland Agriculture's world headquarters in New Holland, Pennsylvania. It's in Lancaster County. It's the perfect place to start. New Holland and the National Hemp Association are partners in this sponsorship, and the work that they're doing and the work that I'm doing sort of, harmonize with each other. So it seems like a natural fit. But we're going to have an event there in the afternoon, Monday, June 28th, trying to get some folks from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture to come out, say a few words. I don't know. I would think it would be super cool if maybe Secretary Redding smashes a bottle of champagne on the front of the RV. I don't know. I'm kidding about that, sort of. And then we'll bring the RV home. We will pack it up with our gear, and then the next morning, my wife and my 2 kids drive south. We're headed first to North Carolina to check out the textile stuff that's going on there, and then we're going to get to Kentucky in the beginning of July. And I've got most of this planned already. There are still some loose ends to tie up, and there's also some like space just for the serendipitous things. After Kentucky, we're going to get out to Kansas, spend some time in South Bend, Kansas, and then head to Colorado, where I hope to catch up with the WAFBA folks, the We Are for Better Alternatives. That's Morris Beagle and the NOCO people. There's Silver Mountain Guitars, there's tree-free paper. There's lots of neat stuff happening in Colorado. And I'm looking forward to getting back to Colorado because in my early 20s, I lived in Boulder, Colorado for a while, and I haven't been back since 97. We are going to take a little bit of time as a family for some vacation stuff. We're going to try to check out the Grand Canyon and then go see some redwoods in California, and then pick up the hemp trail again in Oregon, make our way out to Montana, hang out with the IND hemp folks in Fort Benton, Montana, and then we'll make our way down through Wyoming and South Dakota, and then we're going to drop down to Nebraska, where we'll catch up with the Bish Enterprise folks. And also, I've been talking to some guys over at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and they've got some cool grain stuff happening there. So there's just all of these stories going on throughout the country that I'm not going to be able to tell all the stories or meet all of the people, but I think I should be able to tell a lot of compelling individual stories, which will then turn into a larger compelling story that I think might have some traction and might be able to reach a wider audience. In Lancaster Farming, especially, I'll be writing weekly updates, sending them to my editor from the road. So, there's 65,000 farm families that will be reading about my fiber and grain hemp journey. And no, they're not all hemp farmers, but they're farmers, and it'll, plant seeds in their mind like, oh, there's real stuff happening here. And if they can just open their minds a little bit and imagine a future where hemp is one of the crops, then that's good, right? So yeah, I think we can reach a larger audience and tell the story of hemp, and just move it further along. Wow, that sounds great. I believe in you. I think you can do this. So this trip, like you said, it's this like journalistic quest. It kind of reminds me of other journalistic quests. I think of Charles Kuralt. Remember him on the road on Sunday morning on CBS? He drove around and talked to people. There's also Steinbeck. He's got a book called Travels with Charlie in Search of America. It's about him and his dog in an RV back in 1960, driving around, talking to people. So this is like an American archetype, or like a what do you call that in literature? Like a device, or a trope, maybe? I don't know if that's the right word. But anyway, it sounds like you are on like a writer's mission. And you said earlier that you majored in English and minored in professional writing. So this must feel pretty good that you've got this like huge project ahead of you that I assume you're going to be writing about. Have you considered turning it into a book? Yeah, I think about that a lot, because I think this could be a really neat framework for a book. I've never written a book before, so there's a learning curve there. But yeah, you're right. Like this is classic American road trip, and so I would be foolish to go on this trip and not think about writing a book and not trying to write a book. And I'm going to have a lot of time to write, or at least I hope I do. I also know that I have a lot of work to do. I'm going to be interviewing people at every stop. I'm going to be capturing audio and video, and then I'm going to need to edit that stuff and put out podcasts from the road. I am committed to once a week, but I really think I'm going to be dropping episodes more often than that. I think like here's the North Carolina episode, and then a couple days later, here's the Kentucky episode. And so I hope to give you more than just what I've been doing. This next section of podcast, this summer thing, almost think of it like the next season, right? So I'm excited to bring these stories and this experience to the listeners of our podcast. So you guys have been with me for a long time now, and this is cool. I'm excited to share this with people. But getting back to your original question, yeah, I think this would make a cool book, right? Would it be a memoir? Would it be strictly about hemp? I don't know. So, I've got work to do. If anyone has suggestions out there or knows any publishers of books, get in touch with me. So what else? What else you want to talk about? Well, yeah, okay. How about places that you're looking forward to stopping? Is there anything like you're really like hoping you get to do? Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I can't wait to get back on the road. It's been a long time since I've taken a road trip like this. So I don't know. There's something about the open road that is just really, what's the word? Alluring. But yeah, there's something that, and this is super, super nerdy, I think. But there is a writer, poet, agrarian, philosopher by the name of Wendell Berry. He lives in Kentucky, and I am hoping that we can stop in and visit with him. He's up there in age. I think he's close to 90, but he is a a sharp man, and he's been inspirational to me. I wrote him a letter a couple of weeks ago, asking if we could stop in and visit. So if he writes back and says, yes, come on by, that would be a high point for me. So I'm looking forward to that. Like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to getting back to Boulder. I'm looking forward to, seeing some of those sites that I mentioned, Grand Canyon, Redwoods. I'm excited to just be, with my family in this capacity. I think this is going to be good for our family, and I'm so grateful that I get to provide this opportunity for my kids, because I think this will be life-changing for them. Yeah, how old are your kids? I've got 2 daughters, ages 12 and 10. Okay, and your wife will be your co-pilot? Yep, that's right. My wife, Heather, will be my co-pilot. We will be splitting driving duties. But keep in mind, she also has a full-time job. She is the editor-in-chief of Mindful magazine, and she's going to be busy too. So, this is not a pleasure cruise. We are committed to making this happen, but we know it's going to be challenging. But, we have faith that it will also be rewarding in so many ways. Wow. All right. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. And how will is there anything listeners should be concerned about the podcast? Well, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but we're going to take the month of June off of producing new shows. I'm going to try to publish some sort of greatest hits. You know what I mean? Like my favorite episodes, we will present, encore presentations. There's a few that stick in my mind, like the interview with Bruce Michael Dietzen, the guy who made the sports car out of hemp, or the interview with Dr. Ron Kander from Thomas Jefferson University, to the material scientists, and he talks about like how you integrate hemp into existing products. That one's fascinating. There's a few of them that stick out, so look for those each week. I will try to provide a new message in the beginning of those, but really I need time to focus on this trip and get my shit together. But then starting in July, there will be new episodes, and it's going to be neat. It's going to be neat. That's sort of an understatement. But let's see. There's a question that I like to ask my guests, and I'm going to ask you. Does the marijuana stigma matter? That's a good question. Yeah, I've asked a lot of people that, and I've gotten a lot of different answers. But for me personally, it's tough, because I want to think like, no, it doesn't matter. We just have to push forward with hemp. Forget about the marijuana stigma. Let's just make this happen. But it's not that easy. Like, first of all, I think like within the cannabis industries, there is this tug of war between, THC stuff and industrial hemp, and then there's CBD in the middle. And, I personally would love for, cannabis plant in all of its things just to be completely legalized, and just get all of that like legalization conversation out of the way. So hemp, which is already legal, can just move forward, because let's be honest, hemp has bigger fish to fry, right? I know there's a lot of people who are advocates for hemp who are really just advocating for, legalization. So I think if we can just legalize it and get all of that out of the way, we can really get to work on the larger thing, which, it's these environmental concerns, it's these economic concerns. If we can build systems here in the United States and then throughout the world that are based on agriculture and based on local supply chains and, communities of people making the things that they need for their communities, we could reduce so much of our carbon emissions. We can bring our, just get agriculture to be the forefront of our society, really. I mean, okay, I'm a dreamer. I'm a dreamer. I like to say I'm a simpleton, but I'm an optimist. there's some things I certainly don't understand about the world and how it works, but I really think, we have to imagine the world we want. It's not going to just happen without people imagining it. So, okay, let's say we have a blank slate. Let's imagine a really wonderful place that, environmental concerns are addressed, and, we build economies that empower people. And, I think we can do a lot here, but we have to imagine it. So, I'm sorry, what was your question? Oh, right, about the stigma. Yeah, the stigma does matter. And what really annoys me right now is the Delta 8 stuff, because that is essentially like the big loophole in industrial hemp that lets, the 420 crowd in. And come on, we just don't need that distraction and nonsense. All right, am I still on the soapbox? Yeah, I guess I am. Yeah, but I want you to climb down from that soapbox now, because we have to wrap this episode up. Thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you would like to add? Well, yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on the show today. It's really a pleasure to get to talk to you. And I just encourage people to go to lancasterfarming.com as the tour gets underway, because I'm going to be posting everything there, all of the videos, the interviews, whatever. It's all going to be there. I will continue to publish the podcast, and you'll get that in your normal podcasting app, but there's going to be so much extra stuff going to lancasterfarming.com. So check us out there. All right. Well, Eric Herlock, host of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun. All right, there you go. Our Twilight Zone episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. I know I did. All right, so let's just recap a little bit. We're going on a road trip at the end of June. Going to travel all over the country. We're looking for support. Check us out online if you want to help us. We're going to go dark for the next few weeks. There's not going to be any new Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp podcasts, but I will put out some encore episodes for you. All right, so that's pretty much it. My name is Eric Herlock. I am the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. And drop us a line if you have any questions or you want to help support the tour. You can always email me, podcast@lancasterfarming.com. All right, until next time, I will see you in the newspaper.
Industrial hemp.
Episode 134 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp podcast is copyright 2021 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, which is part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock. The music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.